Okay, so do you want to make a difference? I mean a real difference. Because I'm Danielle Bartz, and I want to make a difference. We all want to do something really big and important, right? We dream about it. But sometimes big isn't what we imagine. Sometimes really making an impact doesn't look like being a superhero. Sometimes a big impact looks, well, small. Sometimes it looks like 5 feet tall with a brown pixie cut and a floral patterned skirt, or a bald head wearing wire-rimmed glasses. And sometimes we stumble upon big impact in an old dusty brick building built in 1970. So go back with me all the way to 2002. As I was filling out the top of my SAT test, I was shocked to find 2 blanks for schools that would automatically receive my scores. You see, I wasn't ready for this because I didn't know where I wanted to go to college. I just knew that skiing and surfing every day sounded like great ideas. So the University of Colorado and the University of Hawaii received my SAT scores. And that was the extent of my college plan. Then months later, I got a "come on by my office when you get a chance" from the senior guidance counselor. Now, when the counselor calls a senior to the office, you've missed some scholarship deadline, you have forgotten an application essay. But not that day. That day, Miss Milam said something to me as casually as if she were reading the lunch menu. She said that my SAT score from a tiny school like ours in rural southeast Texas qualified me for financial aid at the University of Texas. I only needed to apply. Well, after that comment, I applied to UT and I never purchased skis or a surfboard. So, when a girl from a tiny town goes to one of the nation's largest universities, she's got to try some new activities and make some friends, right? So I tried a sport that I'd never heard of. Perhaps you've never heard of it. It's called rowing. That's right, like rowing in a boat. And a year later, I was offered an athletic scholarship to stay on the UT rowing team. And as I filled out paperwork and prepared to sign my name to accept an athletic scholarship to one of the most successful athletic departments in the country, I remembered that comment in Miss Milam's office. When she had found funding, way back before I ever knew where I wanted to go to school, when I had no idea how I would pay for it. She was just doing her job, but she changed my life. Years later at UT, I'm driving home one routine evening after rowing practice, and I get a phone call from a 409 area code. Now, 409 is Woodville, Texas, but I hadn't lived there in years, so why would they be calling me? And Woodville, Texas is a population of 2,014 people, folks, so it's rare that anyone's number is unknown to anyone else. So I answered the phone to Bob Boykin, the town photographer. That's right, Bob Boykin, who had taken photos of every sporting event I'd competed in, every school dance I'd attended, and every town pageant. He was calling me in Austin to talk about the Woodville Rotary Club meeting that day. My name had come up in conversation because they'd discovered a fellowship sending students to countries around the world to study and live and exchange cultures. Well, we think you're uniquely suited for a program like this, and we can't think of anyone better to apply. Well, this international scholarship had a tight application turnaround in the middle of finals, and naturally, I was already pressed up against a self-imposed procrastination deadline. So I wondered, is a tiny chance at some big idea even worth all this extra effort? But the Rotary Club of Woodville thought so. And Bob Boykin called me to encourage me to apply. So I did. And I won that scholarship. And I spent the year after graduation living in the Dominican Republic, traveling to numerous countries, mastering my second language, and literally learning more about myself and the world than I even knew existed, all because of one idea at a Rotary Club meeting and one phone call with some words of encouragement. Years after I'd moved back to Austin, Texas, I found out that the incoming graduate assistant rowing coach had bailed on her new job at UT. That's right, she had chosen to pursue her master's studies at another school. as if there are other schools worth attending, but my coaches called to say, Danielle, if you can get into grad school before the semester starts, you can have her scholarship and you can coach with us. Okay, so I need to get into grad school in July for classes that start in August, which requires test scores that I don't have, application essays I haven't written, letters of recommendation I haven't even requested. Oh, and the tiny detail that it requires all of that 7 months ago before admissions deadlines were closed. So I thought, this is impossible. But it's also too good not to try. So I took the GRE completely unprepared. Heads up, there's a writing section on that test. And then I begged for 24-hour turnarounds on letters of recommendation, and I crafted the most creative essays saying how I'd always wanted to be in that graduate program, even though I didn't apply 8 months ago when everyone else did. And then I took a day off work, and I went traipsing all over UT's campus in the heat of July. And I went in every department that would open the door to explain why they really wanted me a few weeks later. I talked to the law school and the LBJ School of Public Affairs and the government department and the College of Education. And once I was dripping sweat and out of ideas, I just stumbled into the sociology building, the old brown, plain brick, dusty sociology building. Not because I wanted to study sociology, because I was hot and I was out of ideas and out of hope. And that's the building where I had taken my favorite course at UT, Boundaries and Dilemmas, Issues of Life and Death. Now, this wasn't an issue of life or death, but it was a big dilemma. And I happened to find my professor from that class in his office that day, and he did something amazing. After I reminded him who I was, of course, you see, it had been more than 4 years since I'd been in his class, he invited me in and spent an hour scouring departments' deadlines and details and helping me craft my message and my situation so that departments would consider this extraordinary exception. You see, with one small gesture, he helped me find funding for my master's program, which was giant years later when I walked the stage for my master's graduation. It was giant when I traveled to the NCAA National Championship for UT's first ever appearance. And when we were awarded the National Coaching Staff of the Year because we came in 7th at our first ever appearance, I realized I'm an NCAA Division I award-winning rowing coach because one professor opened his door for 1 hour. And policy school led to internships that led to campaigns that led to where I am now on the executive staff for the mayor of Houston. And not a day goes by that I don't remember those small moments with those individuals. I'm so grateful for those small moments with my very own band ragtag superheroes. Miss Milam's comment led to funding for college and a sport that changed my life. And Bob Boykin's phone call sent me traveling around the world. And 1 hour with an open door got me to graduate school that continues to open doors for me. You see, now I identify those people for the mayor's priorities. And I work to find folks whose knowledge and expertise and hard work make big differences all over our city. So if any of my small moments lead to any of those good people becoming an unsuspecting superhero for someone else, then I too have had a huge impact. So if you're hoping to make a big difference one day, consider today. Because whether you're a school counselor for 400 students, or a Rotarian in a tiny town of 2,000 people, or a professor all alone in your office, you can be so big. You see, my superheroes, they didn't wear capes, but they had the power to transform my entire life. And looking down the road, whether I run a corporation or run for elected office, it will be Miss Milam, Bob Boykin, and Professor Eo, whose small moments had huge impacts. Because doing your job and making an encouraging comment and spending just a little time have big effects. So when people ask me what they should do to best serve, I simply tell them, you don't need an invitation. You don't need an official appointment. Just show up, make your ideas heard, and support someone. The effect may not be immediate, and you may never see the results of the chain of action that you're initiating, but you, an individual, with just one statement, one idea, or 1 hour, can have a huge impact. Thank you.